what can I do to get to tomorrow? How can I just survive right now to get to next week or next month or get to the divorce? And part of what I do, especially through my collaborative family law practice, is based on what I've seen, what I've experienced for 15 odd years. I focus on the not only the now, of course, but long term. Because you share children, once they turn 18 doesn't mean you're done with your co-parent. You're going to have graduations, other celebrations, engagements, baby showers, things in your children's lives that you'll probably have to keep seeing your co-parent whether you like it or not.
Some relationships change but never fully disappear. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the divorce itself. It's watching your children feel the tension you tried so hard to hide. The silence at dinner, the awkward exchanges, the feeling that every conversation could become another argument. And somewhere in the middle of surviving everything, you realize your children are carrying pieces of the stress too. Not because they were told directly, but because children always feel what parents can't say. And maybe the real question isn't how to end the marriage peacefully. Maybe it's how to protect your children while your whole life is changing.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Manisha, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to exploring how parents can protect their children and create peaceful co-parenting paths forward. Great to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and kind of talk a little bit about what I do and how to help parents and talk about different options they have as they're navigating, a life transition.
Yeah. You work with families during some of the most emotional moments of their lives. From what you've seen, what are the biggest mistakes parents make during separation that unintentionally hurt their children, and how can they avoid them?
So I would say one of the biggest mistakes parents make during a legal separation, and this goes beyond married parents. It can be unmarried parents, co-parents. I feel like what I see the most common is talking to the children or involving the children about the legal side of things, whether they're in court, there's a custody battle we hear, so often people talk about, or having the children be a conduit between the parents because the parents have difficulty communicating and just interacting. And so I find that those are the scenarios where the biggest mistakes come up. And quite honestly, if we're children focused, which I try to be in my practice, that's going to be the biggest detriment to the children in this entire process.
So don't involve the children. Just work out things with
Right,
yourself.
right.
Good point. Good point. Many parents believe that high conflict is unavoidable in divorce. How does choosing a collaborative or mediation based approach change the emotional experience for both parents and children?
I think it changes the emotional perspective because the feelings, the emotions are at the forefront. When you're going in court, you are kind of at the court's mercies, whatever the law in your state, the court procedures are, their scheduling, you're at the mercy of an external force making decisions for your family, how you see your children, when you see your children, who makes their decisions. And through the collaborative process, I find that even in high conflict situations, if there's even, 2% of a person's interest to get this resolved, get the legal issues resolved in a speedy manner or efficient manner or even children focused, I find that collaborative family law is something that will it will bring parents to the table, whether they're married, unmarried parents, any kind of parent to the table, because oftentimes I find that most people are on the same page about what they want for their children. They just need that oomph, that push to get to the table. And whenever I have collaborative matters, usually when we talk about what is the most important issue on your mind right now, meaning in the collaborative team, we talk to the parents or the parties, and I would say 8 times out of 10, it's going to be my children, our children are making sure this transition is seamless for our children. And I find that once they can get on the same page and they actually voice it in front of each other, that helps almost immediately bring the conflict, high conflict down a little bit, and we can start that discussion about how do you want your co-parenting relationship to work and what can we do to make sure the children's best interests are being met. And the parents are the best people to make that decision, not a judge who's a stranger to your family. Having the parents come and make those decisions and having that say so, that decision make is the most empowering thing for couples. And quite honestly, it lends its hand to helping resolve the other marital legal issues. Once we talk about custody, talk about, the schedule, everything seems to often fall into place, like the money issues.
Right, right. You're so right. So it's just setting the intention benefits children the most, and setting your own emotions or negative patterns aside, and
Right.
kind of focusing more on the outcome and how it will be in the long term. I think a lot of parents or couples get confused when it comes to divorce, because marriage is so easy. You just go, you can be married within 5 minutes, and
Oh,
when it
yeah.
comes to divorce, we have this false perception that it's gonna be easy, and then it's not. It's a whole ordeal. It's a whole process, because it touches and depends how long you've been together with a person. So much more history or assets you have accumulated together becomes to unwind. So focusing your attention on what, or your intention on what you want to achieve, what is the best outcome for
Mhm.
the children, is best, and set your own differences aside, because
Right.
divorce does not put a stopping point. You're still gonna be kind of related because you're still
Right.
parents. That part doesn't end. It continues on. And
Right. And
having
that's
that,
what I
remembering that's important.
yeah, that's what I talk to my clients about because, everyone most times is focused on right now. What can I do to get to tomorrow? How can I just survive right now to get to next week or next month or get to the divorce? And part of what I do, especially through my collaborative family law practice, is based on what I've seen, what I've experienced for 15 odd years. I focus on the not only the now, of course, but long term. Because you share children, once they turn 18 doesn't mean you're done with your co-parent. You're going to have graduations, other celebrations, weddings, engagements, baby showers, things in your children's lives that you'll probably have to keep seeing your co-parent whether you like it or not. It's one of those things that, again, for your adult children, even, you want to make sure that, there's a word that's overused right now, but the least amount of trauma afflicted on your children, and not airing your private marital relationship in public record in the court system, fighting it out. I think that is one of the best ways to move forward in these situations because it's the least traumatic for the children. And right now I'm talking about adult children, not, excuse me, not adult children, but like teenagers. When you have really young children, I often see parents use the children's like, all right, tell your mom I put the child support check in your backpack. And that's something that a 7-year-old shouldn't have to worry about going to school or having an overnight bag with them at school because you can't take your clothes from dad's house to mom's house or back, vice versa. And so it's all about what can we do to keep stability for the children during this transition.
Before we continue, if you're navigating separation, divorce, or another difficult life transition, I'd like to share a resource that may support you. My book, The Gift Inside, was written for people going through life's hardest seasons. It's a reminder that even in moments of uncertainty, loss, and change, there is strength within you that can help you move forward one step at a time. If you are looking for hope, resilience, and a new perspective on your journey, you can find The Gift Inside over on Amazon. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Cost, time, and stress are major fears for single parents facing divorce. How does a lower conflict process impact these factors compared to traditional courtroom battles?
So that's a great question. I find that when I'm talking about the dispute resolution spectrum, I'm talking about options legally that are highly adversarial to the least adversarial. And on the least adversarial, the least like headbutting, fighting type scenario option I find is collaborative family law. And oftentimes, especially with the unpredictability of the court system, cases can go on for 18 months before they get a hearing. I talked to a client yesterday about a child support modification case, and that was originally filed 18 months ago, and they're just now scheduled for trial at the end of this month. And so it's one of those things where your time expense is very unpredictable. Time away from work, time away from your children. What if you run out of time off at work? Your emotional stress going to the courthouse is just stressful. I mean, it's a government building. You have to go through security. You can't have your phone. You can't have your Apple Watch. You can't have anything really but a bottle of water and maybe a book to read. And it's just a lasting stress. And then everything's public. At the end of the day, you're also paying your lawyers every single time you have to go to court. And so with collaborative family law, you're agreeing not to litigate. You sign an actual agreement, a pledge is what I call it, collaborative pledge that you agree you're not going to file a lawsuit. And so from the outset, you're not going through the court process. And then through through the collaborative process, we have a series of collaborative sessions. I call them four-way settlement conferences, so 4 ways for short. And everyone comes to the table and we work through that process rather than a positional based discussion. We have interest based. So we talk about what are your interests, what are your unmet needs, how can we satisfy that while we work through resolving these issues. And I find that those cases, we have these four-way meetings maybe twice a month, maybe every 3 weeks, and we could resolve all the claims, all the things, maybe in 6 months. The fastest one I've had was 2 months. We had everything resolved. They did something temporary for custody to try it out, and we came back in 6 months and just tweaked a little things about their custody arrangement, and they had an agreement. And so it's one of those things where when people are invested, they have the buy-in to come to the table, and it can be faster. It can be less expensive because you're not paying for an attorney for 18 months. Here we are, maybe 6 months at the max to resolve these issues. I think it's a no-brainer, and it's not always the best option to choose, but more times than not, I would say collaborative family law works for the majority.
Yeah, you're so right. Things can be resolved peacefully, maybe outside of court. It can save time, money, energy, nerves, stress.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. One of the hardest things for parents is keeping children out of the middle during a painful separation. What practical steps can parents take starting today to protect their kids emotionally?
So I think a lot of what I counsel clients, or rather what I see, is some of those examples I mentioned, slipping the child support check in the backpack, or saying, clothes from your dad's house can't come here. Things from my house stay here, things from dad's house, stay there. And so things like that, I think really like children's minds are sponges, right? We all hear that. And I feel like they internalize that. And a lot of that comes from not having an outlet. And so one of the things I think is very helpful, and again, it's not for everyone, but it doesn't hurt to try, and I've seen it successful, is working with a mental health provider, whether that's just a counselor or through the collaborative process, we can have a child welfare specialist who are neutrals. They don't take anyone's side, but they talk to the children. They talk to the children. How are they feeling emotionally, physically with this transition? What are their wishes? And so not quite like a guardian ad litem, someone who speaks for the children in court for their wishes, but more so how like a check-in, that mental health check-in. And it gives the children an outlet that they don't have to pick a parent. They don't feel like they're in the position having to pick a parent. And so at the outset, I tell my clients, do not talk to the children about this, whether they're adult children or younger children, not in school yet children. Do not talk about those even on the phone if they're in the same room with someone else. Don't have any conversations exposed to the children about what's going on with their other parent, and leave that for the either if you're in the court system, go through those processes, or let's work together and find a way to protect the children in what fits best for that family. Restructuring that family into two separate homes now, what works? And through the collaborative process, we have the freedom to do that instead of, again, going in front of a judge, a stranger to your family, telling you how and when to see your children.
Yes. Another point that, when you're getting married, just the two of you are there. And now when it's divorce, you're inviting all these external practitioners. You have a lawyer and a
Right.
therapist and another.
Exactly, exactly. There are a lot of a lot of people involved, and I know with North Carolina, I'm pretty sure it's still accurate that we're the only state in the country that our state court system is 100% virtual now, meaning you can file doc papers online. If you have an internet connection, you can search all filings in any 100 counties of the state online. And so that's one of the things I caution my clients that, if litigation is your choice or your only option, we can do that. But there are major drawbacks to that. And if that's what you want to do, I truly don't think that is the most beneficial option for families, especially with children, because I think about those relationships that are continuing again with your own children, but with your co-parent. It can get really contentious in court, and it just tears families apart where oftentimes it takes very long, if ever, that they're healed.
Totally, totally. I know you are releasing a book that's coming soon, right?
Yes, yes. It's
Is
called
this your
Ending Your Marriage.
first work? First published work?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, it
Congrats.
is. I'm
Congrats.
very excited.
Yeah. So it's called End Your Marriage Peacefully, Your Guide to Successful Collaborative Divorce in North Carolina. So what made you decide to create this book?
Well, yeah, and so I shifted my practice primarily. I had a hybrid practice before with litigation on the court side and doing non-litigation on the less adversarial, what we call alternative dispute resolution. I'm a certified mediator as well, and I shifted, about 85% of my practice is now outside of the courtroom. Before it was over half, and now through that process and seeing how helpful and how much it benefits families, I was looking for resources. I like to, in my office, I like to keep like um a little library, if you will, of helpful books for parents or people who are separating that either they can read, or books for children to help talk about divorce, to how different things like that. And I thought I have resources as an attorney, as a licensed attorney about collaborative family law, but what do people have? What do people going to the bookstore or searching online for different options to separate? How can I do this? How can we do it where we're not, you know, zeroing out our retirement account to pay for attorneys? And I found that there was a need for it. There was a need for more educational type material for, I say, for the people rather than attorneys and legalese, legal jargon, something that people can read and understand their options in the family law field here in North Carolina, which I think is very transferable to other jurisdictions who have adopted the Uniform Civil Collaborative Law Act. North Carolina did, effective in 2020. And I believe over 35 states now have adopted that act. And so, um, making it law, making it state law. And so I find that it's pretty transferable outside of North Carolina as well. But the purpose was to find a way to communicate, to get this information out to the public to understand your only option is not what you see on TV, fighting in court. Or when I was younger and I wanted to be a lawyer, I would watch all the judge shows like Judge Judy or Divorce Court. And it doesn't have to always be like that. And so I wanted to make sure people had a resource. They had something to help them learn about this that's not just full of legal words that lawyers or people in law school or who work in law firms can understand. Just everyday people who might want to learn about something that's not going to cost them an arm and a leg, take years to resolve, and have some peace. Because I feel like at the end of the day, with co-parenting, with legal separation and divorce, your end goal is going to be peace. You want to find peace in your life, whatever that looks like.
Totally love it. And thank you so much for creating such a resource. And I love that you're not using legalese language, you're using human layman terms. So it's easy for people to understand. They don't need to go to law school to understand.
Right.
Also, if you had to summarize it in a few sentences, what is the main goal? I understand you want more people to know that this exists, but what can you tell about the book that summarizes its essence?
Yeah. So I would say this book is unique in that it doesn't just talk about collaborative family law. We talk about, I talk about in the book all of the options in the dispute resolution spectrum, is what I'm going to call it, from the most adversarial of litigation to the least adversarial, the least fighting, least aggressive of collaborative family law. I talk about all of the different options along that spectrum, and it's really to help inform the reader what these options may look like, even if you're not in North Carolina. These are common techniques and options throughout the states, and it helps you. What I call, one of my favorite chapters is called a choose your own adventure, where I kind of play through the different options in a scenario. So it's really easy to understand what could this look like if I had to file a custody lawsuit and my co-parent and I, someone moved out. We need to figure out how are we going to share custody and who's going to make the decisions for our children. Well, I talk about how those different options look like if we go to court straight off. If we decide to negotiate between attorneys outside of court, if we decide to go to a mediation and have a mediator, a neutral third party, help the parents come to a decision or resolution. And then collaborative family law, which is a complete agreement. You don't go to court, and we're going to sit together to figure this out. We can get those child welfare specialists if we need it. And it doesn't mean we can't use a mediator. I've had collaborative matters where we had a mediator come in at the very end to help us with child support. That's another piece where, it's not just custody. We talk about legal separation, we talk about divorce, we talk about spousal support like alimony, but also custody and child support. And so I kind of walk through different scenarios of each of those options so the reader can understand a realistic view of each of those options and figure out what's going to be the best for their family. And so that's one of my favorite chapters, and I think it really helps inform the reader and gives them empowerment in their lives at this transition period.
Totally. I love the kind of the role play and seeing different alternatives, because when you're going in, you don't really know, or you'll be going to different
Right.
websites scoring information, but here you're offering kind of a real life example. What would ABCD
Right. Oh yeah.
option will look like? So you kind of have like, how you call it, like a buffet of choices that you can pick
Right, right,
instead
right.
of just
Exactly.
this is one I'm gonna just try. Awesome.
Exactly. And I think it's really important that people are informed. You know, ethically in North Carolina, we're required by our rules of professional conduct to advise clients about all of their options, especially if you do collaborative law. We have a special ethics opinion that says you must advise them of all of their options. And then you can tell them, you know, I think this is best legally, but we're required to talk about all of the options. And so I thought, I don't know if other states do that, if they require it, but I think it's really important. And so I use real life examples from the past 15 odd years that I've seen in court, out of court, you know, private negotiations, and each of those options to resolve their legal issues and ways that things have worked, things have not worked, and how can we find the best way for it to work?
Thank you. For parents listening who feel overwhelmed, scared, or unsure how to move forward, what message or reassurance would you offer about creating a peaceful co-parenting future, even after divorce?
Yeah, I would say first, figure out your goals. And to me, I keep notebooks everywhere. I have like a little notebook I take with me everywhere, a little one in my purse, and just, or people use their Apple Notes, but on their phones. But start creating a list. What's going to be, you know, your priorities in the order of importance in order to find that peace, right? What are your goals? And I think when you go through that, I think it becomes apparent of how can I find the best option to achieve these goals. And more times than not, I will say children are always at the top of that list. And finding a way to protect your children is paramount, you know. And in North Carolina, they hold that constitutional right to parent your children so highly that parents, whether they know that or not, that is most often their priority. And so going through figuring out your priorities, and then with that, meet with a lawyer. I often say, even if you don't hire an attorney, at least meet with someone, know your legal rights, know your legal obligations, and then that lawyer can help you figure out your best option. And I often tell people, let's say they choose going to court. Well, in North Carolina, you are required to have a custody mediation through the court system before you get in front of a judge. It's just required. In very limited circumstances will they not make you go to mediation. And so I often tell people, you can do this yourself. Hire me if mediation is unsuccessful. If we need to have another meeting, a coaching session before mediation, let's do that. But I'm a big supporter of these alternative dispute resolution methods because it gives the parties, the clients, the co-parents, the freedom to voice what their desires are, what they want, their requests. And then in other ways, that just is not put at the forefront. Their goals are not put at the forefront. And so I think that's the best way to prepare. I do offer, and I can share the link with you, like a handout, a guidebook, your top 10 things to consider and keep in mind when considering a legal divorce or separation. And so I can share that with you if you wanted to share with the listeners, just a helpful guide when they're thinking about this to help them create that checklist.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. We will include it in episode notes. Resources are great.
Yes, yes. I love resources. I want to make sure people have as many resources as possible.
Yeah, totally. What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
Superpower. In my family law world, it is a double-edged sword. I wish I could read people's minds. Oftentimes people are maybe too nervous to express what they want, or they don't know how to like verbalize it. And I think if I could pick a superpower, I would like to read minds, because that would take out, again, a level of stress from my clients, that I know what they're thinking and I can start putting wheels in motion to make those things happen. It always takes some cajoling. And again, this is so private, intimate, that we're talking about your family, relationships, your children. People are very hesitant to open up, and, understandably so. I think that would be the superpower I would pick.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, I wanted to share about my book. It's soon to be published, end of winter, early spring this year. End Your Marriage Peacefully, and I hope it helps. I'm doing this to help people and help people understand they have options. The only thing is not, Judge Judy divorce court. There are many options.
Totally. Thank you. And where will people can buy the book?
Yeah, they
Will be
can,
on Amazon
once it's
or
Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Target online, most online, and then I'm working with local bookstores, retailers here in North Carolina for, hardback distribution, but, for anyone, it will be online. So Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and the like.
right. Awesome. Thank you so much. If people would like to learn more about you, where would they go?
You can go to my website. It's lawofficeofmpp.com. And then we have social media accounts on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Our Instagram handle is LOMPP11. I post a lot about court. I was in court this morning. I like to post about my different activities. I hold a number of leadership roles in local, state, and national legal organizations. So I like to share with the followers, the audience, about different activities I do to help the profession, support women in the profession and under the law.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for your work of spreading information and helping people end divorce peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful chatting with you today.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Single Parent Success Stories. If this conversation reminded you that peace is still possible even during major life transitions, please share this episode with someone who may need encouragement right now. And remember, divorce may change the structure of a family, but it doesn't have to destroy the emotional future of one.